Hi, I'm Hannah and I'm here with former lioness Fara Williams and content creator Chessie King. Now, in 2024, we are definitely more aware of the benefits that come with exercise. However, research shows that women and girls are still not exercising enough. So today we're going to have a chat to see how we can break that cycle. Hi, Farah and Chessie. Thank you for joining me. Are we ready to talk exercise?
Absolutely.
And influences?
Yeah.
And how we're going to break cycles?
Yeah.
Fabulous. So obviously, as I said, influences. So who are your influences when you were growing up in regards to exercise?
Want to go first?
I think it's quite a common answer, but my mum was always, I do believe that my husband is only with me in the hope that I look as fit and healthy as my mum in her 60s. I'm like, I don't know. But she is the epitome of health. She is a goddess. She is yoga teacher. She's a nutritionist. She's kind of installed it all in all three of us, my brother and my sister and I, since the very start, literally grassroots. We were upside down at 2 years old and just in a yoga headstand.
Oh, I love that.
So I haven't been able to escape it. And it's amazing because all my friends would be like, she wasn't just the almond mum or when you go around your mate's house and you want a packet of crisps. Oh, everyone will come around and
dried fruits. Go away.
I had a friend like that never had chocolate and it used to upset me.
We were the worst house. I never invited friends around because they just get Brazil nuts. Still now to this day, my husband's diabetic and he gets given walnuts. I'm like, Mum, that's not got any sugar in it when he's low. But it did have its incredible, obviously, it taught us the values of exercise and the importance of it and whatever. But it also, now I realise, had such a toxic impact on me, and seeing my mum and dad going out for runs when we were on holiday and that for me, I was like, I almost rebelled against it. So honestly, I was I'm not doing triathlons.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Oh God, really?
All my ex-boyfriends, sorry if you're watching, which you won't be, not one of them escaped a triathlon. All of them. My mum would just sign them up for their birthday and be like,
their birthday?
Happy birthday, yeah.
Oh, that's so nice.
It's so cute.
Wait, so did you have to do triathlons as well?
Forced. You're coming with me.
That is so funny.
I'm sure it's different for you, Farah, but
that doesn't sound funny at all. That sounds like
not funny.
hell on earth for me.
It's torture. No, they're amazing, and she still is the most active woman. She's so strong. She's so healthy. She's just phenomenal. But definitely installed a bit of an unhealthy relationship, even though it was the healthiest childhood growing up.
Wait, talk me through this unhealthy. Why would you say unhealthy?
Oh, because I almost saw it she would train, not overtrain, but she was so aware of food and so aware of the nutritional benefits of food that she would, I'd go to school with polystyrene tiles. Do you remember rice cakes that were just
wow.
And she thought that they were healthy back then because that's what kind of the Special K world and all of that era. And now she realizes they're not, but she would know the exact grams of protein and everything. And it's amazing because it installs so much understanding and appreciation for food. But my God, I knew way too much from an early age.
My influences in terms of being active was so different. I grew up on an estate. I think it was the in thing to just be out on the estate. So as soon as you got home from school, it was a case of doing your homework and then kids get out. Mm. And so we're out, and whether we're playing run outs or whether we're playing football or some form of sport and being active. So it wasn't nowhere near similar to yours in terms of that kind of force or that role model in terms of mum or dad that showed us the way. It was more the environment or the community that we grew up in. It was just normal to be out and be active, and it followed through in primary school and stuff like that. And you're talking about food, it wasn't something, we wasn't strict.
Yeah.
We grew up with a family that wanted to know that their kids were fit, their belly was full, and so fridges and everything was just fully stacked. You weren't allowed to leave the table until you ate your dinner, and then obviously you can have your luxuries after. But yeah, we were, I guess the activeness was living on the estate, having youth clubs, having people like that to look up to and play with, I guess.
Youth clubs, that's a massive thing. They
Oh,
don't
massive.
have as many.
So annoying.
We used to go there, we were playing badminton, we
Everything,
were playing tennis,
rounded, you name
foosball,
it.
you're just running around. They don't have that anymore.
No,
They're not.
No,
Big
they
culture
got rid of
change,
them all
right?
because
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
But it's
And
crazy.
it's sad.
If you look at society now and you look at what young adults are getting up to on the streets now compared to what we did. We were kids. I look at it now and I think kids can't be kids anymore. They're adults by the time they're 10 or by the time they leave primary school. you know, we were kids up until we were 16 still.
Yeah.
You know, still in the park and you know, knocking at your mate's house to come out and play, and still ask, you know, mum, can so-and-so come out to play? And we were still asking that at 16.
So I've got some facts for you.
Go on.
I'm just going to read out. So 13.47% of women say they have not dedicated any time to physical exercise on a weekly basis in the last 12 months. Almost a quarter of parents want to exercise more to role model for their children. However, only 11% say they've taken up a sport or started exercise in order to do this. Almost a quarter of parents with children aged 11 to 16 say they are motivated to exercise to be a positive role model for their children, but only 11% currently are putting that into practice. So does this sound familiar? What barriers do you remember facing in terms of like exercise, movement, and being active when you were growing up?
I think it's an education thing, isn't it? Because you were brought up in the case where you had your mum that was very active and kind of educated you and took you through. We was uneducated around movements, etc., but was basically pushed into doing that by getting out of the house and having to move and forced to do that. And they're both exercises. And probably I didn't realise I was exercising while I was playing around house, while I was playing football and whatever else. And you probably were made aware that you were exercising. And I think it's the education around what is exercise, because we all see it differently. And, you know, for some people walking their kids to school, you know, if it's a 15-minute walk there and 15-minute walk back, probably don't see that as exercise.
Yeah.
And they will do that and be like, I've not done any exercise. So I just think if you get into a routine, there's one thing that they can adapt in terms of a little bit earlier wake up, breakfast, everything sorted, night clothes sorted the night before. And then you can take them to school by foot, as opposed to on the bus or as opposed to in the car, which I know most parents will be rushing in the morning because they have other things to do. And there's just a way of maybe, you know, trying to be more active, or certainly trying to get more movement in. And then it obviously encourages the kids to be active with that.
Do you think there's an appreciation for the fact that exercise was just this innate thing for you to get you out the house, because then it meant you were so active every day? So again, I think we had a luxury when we were younger that I don't know if the world appeared safer, because I would just be out on my bike every day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You literally get home from school, you'd go out on your bike just up and down the road. I'd be like to my mum, I'm going to the park. You'd just go play, you'd walk back. I think I was about, sorry mum if this makes you sound like a bad parent and dad, but I think I was about 8. And I used to walk
but I think
2 rows to go to the park.
You know, you're right. But I think communities are changing, aren't they? And society is changing. And I think like when we grew up, in terms of safety, in terms of the estates that we were around and that kind of community that was built, you felt very safe that the neighbours would look out for you and etc. So if you moved the block, you know, if you went over to play in front of that block or that case, you knew, and most of the time your parents would know kind of where you are. And now it's so different. You know, kids are tempted to do all kinds. They have mobile phones and they disappear. And so there's a lot of like, you think of estates, and I go back to it because I grew up on one. You know, youth clubs were so important in terms of physical activity and things that, you know, they used to do where your parents knew you was going into a safe environment. You were all there, and there was people that could look after you whilst, you know, being active and doing whatever else and engaging with other people.
I love to talk about, I don't even want to call it taboo, but taboo subjects, which is difficult for girls growing up. And I'm sure we can all establish this, is obviously when our bodies start to change. Even growing up, I don't think I was educated until I was in my 30s. I only started laying down in lockdown, just more about my cycle. So do you think there's an element of girls being held back or not wanting to engage in sport because they don't understand their bodies? Or was that a thing for you growing up?
Oh yeah, and like skipping PE was such a thing because you were on your period, and everyone would be like, just say you're on your period. But I feel like, and I went to a state mixed school where like we would get, I mean, the boys in my school were horrendous. As soon as they found out I was on my period, they'd like take my bag, tip it upside down, use all of I had tampons and pads. They'd stick the pads to the walls, fire the tampons across the science room. So then when it came to PE, I'd be like,
I've got nothing.
So I'd like literally just use the barricade of toilet roll and just shove it under. And it's so weird because the amount of times that I did leak through and I'd go, I don't know what to do. Like, and then you'd have to wear spare, whatever, like lost property. And there were so many things around 11 to 16. And now I know, having a daughter, like as in the education, like you said, from a young age, like she knows when I'm on my period. She goes, Mum, are you bleeding? I'm like, how do you know? Like, honestly, it's wild. I mean, obviously.
So you're going crazy.
Yeah. What's wrong with you, Mom? You were nice yesterday. No. My patience evaporates. But I feel like that that is such a key time for confidence, and like the changes are bizarre. Like if you don't have that motherly figure or that sisterly figure to go, look, this is exactly what's happening to your body. And someone like you said, we still don't know what's going on. So if you don't have that figure or that role model that you could go like, okay, like my boobs are changing, I feel like my tummy's cramping or whatever. Of course, exercise is going to be the last thing you think about. And actually, I would say that now I know exactly when to train and what to train on my cycle. I am so involved in my cycle and know exactly what day that I don't do any weight training like leading up to my cycle, like for the like 5 days leading up, because I know that I will then have a heavier and more intense period and I'll feel awful. And I know that at 31 because I've almost experimented with my own body. But going back to like school, and I just wish, but then it's not I don't think it's the teacher's responsibility. They've got so much to deal with already. I believe that it's at home that they should be learning.
I think
about
it's
that.
both.
I think it's both.
I think growing up, I think kids have more time with teachers than they'd obviously do their parents. If you think about when they come home, it's more dinner, kind of out, playing, bath,
Those
bed,
chats.
and go again. And I think it's important in primary schools, especially to get boys to like girls eventually will have to start wearing sports bras as they get older. And when the lads don't learn about it, so the young boys don't learn about it as well as young girls don't understand it in primary school, you know, the 5 to 11 year age group. And I think it's important that they understand that they start to train them from that age. You know, it's a part of your PE uniform that you wear a crop top when we're doing PE. So the girls understand it and why they start to need to having to wear that, for example. And boys understand that it's a thing that girls will have to eventually wear it because they start to grow boobs. And I think if they learn it in primary school, when it comes to senior school, they're more educated around the differences between males and female bodies.
And then it's not this taboo subject.
It's not like, oh my God, like she's got those, you know, what are them things bouncing or whatever. And it's, you know, the immaturity because they've not had it growing up. They, you know, it's something new to them. And when you see something new, you're giddy and excited and whatever. In terms of like when you talk about, oh, they've never seen a tampon before. They don't know what Soniger towels are used for. Well, if we educate them really early, they understand it and it becomes the norm. We do it so late. And this is why I think the mickey taking and whatever else happens.
Growing up on an estate, and obviously I'm assuming playing football, you would have been playing with boys a lot. So was that a difficult thing for you? Could you talk openly about it when you were younger, or was it this thing that you had to kind of hide when you were around them?
Being on my cycle?
Yeah.
No, I definitely hid it. But you know what? It's funny because obviously when I was playing football, and you talk about when you're young, like when I didn't start my period till I was 14, 15, so quite late. And I remember like having a sanitary towel and I was thinking, oh my God, like it just felt disgusting trying to play football and run around when you got to stretch and all it, and like, you know, like lunge through a ball. I was like, this is not okay. Went home to my mom and was like, Mom, I need to like try a tampon. You don't put it in properly. You don't really know what you're doing. My mom didn't use them and my older sister didn't use them.
Right.
So it was me trying something new and it was like the most I was like, right, your mum tells you about all the side effects to, you know, and I'm like, and
it's
like,
the leaflet with the foot on the
so I go to the cage and obviously I haven't told anybody and I'm playing football and I'm thinking, oh my God, I feel dizzy. And I started to tell myself after reading the leaflet that I was having all these side effects to having it in. So it took me a really long time to then actually use tampons, which were actually more effective for me in sport because, as I said, with these, I used to call them nappy. It was like wearing a nappy.
Oh, it was
awful. Trying to do sport.
Like 10 times bigger back then as well.
I
was never comfortable talking about it with anyone, not even with girls, not even with, like my girlfriends in school. I was like, it wasn't even a topic that was spoken about. Nobody would ever really mention it.
I remember we would never say the word tampon. Do you remember there was that advert?
I called them sweeties. It's a running joke. See, I call them sweeties.
Do you remember they used to be like, oh, do you want a sugar for your tea? Because you remember when they made, I'll say call them tampons. It was a certain brand and they made them smaller and compact.
Yeah.
So it was like in cute little things. They'd be like, do you want a sugar? So you could openly, so we used to call them sugars. We'd be like, I need a sugar. Has anyone got a sugar?
I say it's sweet.
And they're like, what type of sugar would you want? Like, purple one, please.
Yeah, green, yellow, orange. Yeah. No, but I use that. So that's what I started to use at football because obviously we were then around male coaches.
Yeah. And
obviously it wasn't something that men equally aren't as comfortable. You know, if I needed a towel or a sanitary towel or a tampon to ask a guy, a coach to say, oh, I need this. It was uncomfortable for them receiving that information from me. And it just become a thing where I'd be like, I need a sweetie. And it would be like, which one? And yeah, it would become a little bit of a running joke. But I never used the word tampon or sanitary towel ever at football. It was always sweetie.
I think this is where language, I think, can actually be quite important as well. And when they're educating people, using them, teachers, parents, is using the actual proper language as well. Because I know for me growing up, because the proper language, you always had nicknames for everything.
Always.
So then there was, I don't know, it's about for the same for you too, but then there's almost like a bit of a shame that comes with it. Because if you can't even say a word, I'm like, why can't I say this word? What is shameful about this?
But even to the point, sorry to interrupt, that you couldn't even ask, say, dad or a brother to go to the shop to get you tampons or sanitary towel, because it was like, you can't send a guy.
Oh my God!
It was like a disrespect to ask them to go and get it, and it was never a thing that they would go to the shop and get it. It shouldn't be uncomfortable. It shouldn't be uncomfortable that if your brother's going to the shop that they can pick up off the shelf but it is, or you'd be made fun of. So it doesn't become a natural thing for boys and men to engage in with women.
So I think it's safe to say this cycle definitely needs to be broken.
For sure, but really early. I think primary school.
So you think it's just about educating people, and it's educating everyone. Exactly what you said earlier. So it's not a thing.
It's a both thing. It can't just happen in school in isolation. It has to happen, as you mentioned, at home. You know, at home, these topics need to be spoken about. It's the same with everything, isn't it? When we talk about anything in life, if it's only happening in school and it's forgotten about and something else is used at home, it doesn't mean anything.
So what changes do you think, aside from education, needs to be made now to ensure that girls growing up now are not going through the same experiences that we clearly all shared growing up?
I think the switch between using the word exercise and movement, like this whole campaign is about movement and like not thinking about exercise as getting on that treadmill and watching those very inaccurate numbers come up on the thing. Like, I think we have so much accessibility to technology nowadays, like the rings, the watches, the step trackers. Like back when I remember my nana gave me her pedometer to see how many like steps, and I wore it on my little trousers and wore it for the day, and I was like 6,000. I was like, oh, I think it might have to be a bit more than that. But I think now we're so like we're either ruled by technology and we're like the sleep trackers and everything, and we don't need that much information, I don't think, at that age. You just need to like gamify it for that age. Yep. You need to almost create that like healthy understanding that movement is just, like you said, anything from walking with your mates to school or going trampolining with your friends, like finding really fun ways to move your body in that age group, 11 to 16. And maybe that's why I didn't think like dance was ever exercise, because dance was just put on music and
but that's what I mean. It should be. It should be seen as exercise. You think of how much of a workout, doing a dance class is, or how many, the stuff you see on telly now where you can watch it and kind of copy and whatever. But these things, what is when you're in school and what teachers or whoever it might be tell you, this is exercise, but this isn't. They're so wrong in what they're saying. Like, even if they say walk laps around the school playground, they wouldn't see that as exercise.
But also, do you think that's
punishment
creating a negative association with exercise if we're using laps to punish children? Yeah.
But then so what the jog, I mean, I never had to do the jog. I was a goody two shoes in school.
She was like, please.
Do you know what? I wasn't the smartest, but I wasn't naughty.
Yeah.
I loved being in school. But as I say, I wasn't.
Did you love PE?
Yeah, but I wasn't engaged in it. Like only like maths. I loved maths and like art and food tech, but the English, I mean, I couldn't even engage myself in that or geography or RE. The more difficult ones. Yeah, I wasn't.
But
I like to be at school. I like being out. I like being with friends. But I wasn't academic. But going back to the point of like, especially in PE or whatever it might be, even in football as you get older, a punishment would be to do an extra shuttle, for example.
Yeah.
But then during my career, like running was just like, I hated it. So as a kid, I loved it. I mean, I did cross country. None of my teammates would believe that I did cross country as a kid and was actually okay at it. Because when it come to doing sport and it meaning something, I hated it. It was like a punishment having to do fitness.
Do you think it's when they start to apply like rules to stuff?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Timing. You must do that. You might, you're competing with somebody else. I never competed with anybody. We all just competed with ourselves. We're just out there just playing. It wasn't, I think the more when it becomes more competitive like that, it becomes less enjoyable.
So obviously that being your relationship with exercise growing up. So we've spoken about both of your journeys through exercise. What would you say your relationship with exercise is now as an adult? Going through all of that growing up.
Mine's leisurely. You know, I think as a kid it was leisurely. It was, you know, I did it because I wanted to and I wanted to be out there. As a footballer, it felt like punishment. Some of the runs and training and weights that we had to do. And obviously your body changes through all of those different cycles. And I remember when we were first introduced to weights and I went like really like big and I was like, oh, you look, didn't even feel good, but they was telling me your body fat's really low and it's great. And I was one of the, and when I saw myself in a bikini, I was like, oh, you look like a, you just don't look feminine. That's how I felt. And I was like, and I'm supposed to. I felt like for everybody else, I was supposed to. And it's really difficult when you're a sports person is that you want to feel feminine. Yeah. But in order to be the best, you have to look, you know, muscly. You have to look, you know, not as feminine as you would like to. And you're always fighting that in your own head. But it was like football training in terms of without the ball and it was running and weights, felt like punishment. Hated it. They used to call me ghost at weights. I used to get in and out as quickly as I could. And some people wouldn't even see me because, yeah, I was that quick because I didn't want to, when I went through that bulking and didn't understand why I bulked, I didn't like to do weights again. There was a period where I stopped doing it. I was like, I'm not doing it. You've made me put weight on. You've made me look a certain way and I don't feel good. And yeah, but now I love being able to get up and choose what I want to do and when I want to do it. I love walking. Walking for me, when I got ill after playing with my kidney condition, it was all I could do. And I fell in love with walking. Now I would never retire from football thinking that walking every day, 10, 15K would be enjoyable for me because I couldn't think when I played of anything more boring than going for a walk. Now I absolutely love it and I have to get in, have to do it. And so even waking up and doing a jog where I haven't got to time my kilometers, I can just, if I want to do a 6-minute kilometer, 8-minute, a 5, I can do it at that. Whereas playing, it was like, no, you've got to get under 5 minutes or you've got to get here in certain time.
Now you're seeing these same things from an adult, like you're past that point, you're looking back into it, you can see the changes that are being made. Do you think there's any more changes that need to be made, maybe specifically in women's sports, but just women exercising anyway in terms of like education or what we should be doing?
I don't know. Now I look at it like I look at exercising so much different now when I'm not competing and just being able to just do it, as I say, leisurely. It's a lot different. I think in sport, there's still a lot that needs changing for females to males. I think a lot of, certainly in football, the men's game's been going a long time. A lot of our sports science comes from the men's game. We haven't really trialled it with the women. And we've trialled it over the last 6-7 years and we've seen numerous amount of ACL injuries because the research is that the men can do it, the women should be able to do it. So the bodies are so different, you know, and each individual woman's body is so different. So we've got to take into account that the women's body is completely different to the men's body. So in terms of that training program, it needs to be adapted and changed, but also individually, you talk about size, shapes, whatever, how women deal with their period, whether it be before they have an episode where they know they can't, or whether it's during or whether it's after. You know, it's knowing your own body and I guess trial and error, but it needs to be done and there's not enough research around that in women's sport in order to give them the best chance of you know, one, not getting injured when they're around their cycle, but two, being able to train to their maximum in and around that as well.
I think that knowing your body as well is so important. I think using your own body as like an experiment, like assessing how you feel before, during and after. And like you are the only person, like you said, who knows your body so well. And you're the only thing. You can read all of this research. You can hear all these suggestions from your friends and family. Like try that, do that, do that. But it's only when you do experiment and try. And I always say like, when I used to go around and speak at schools for the girls from 11 to 16, they were like, what's your one piece of advice for someone that wants to get into exercise or someone that wants to start moving their body? I'm like, right, think of 4 different ways of moving your body. Let's say like cycling, rollerblading, swimming, trampolining, and do 1 a week, like keep that week for a month. So you've got first week cycling, blah, blah, blah. And like every day you can write it down or you can write it in your notes, whatever way that you process like kind of journaling better. And like just check in with yourself, be like, what did I feel like before? I feel a bit sluggish. My legs felt quite heavy, blah, blah. And then how did I feel during? Was I like, your inner monologue is like, oh, I quite like this. I feel really good. And then afterwards, did you feel exhausted for the rest of the week? Did you feel, I don't know, like uplifted, whatever? And you are the best way of like experimenting. Your body is going to tell you exactly which one to kind of stick to and experiment. And that doesn't have to last forever. You don't have to be a cyclist forever. You don't have to be trampolining every day for the rest of your life. But just in like, it's always going to shift. It's always going to change. But right at this like very moment, how can I enjoy movement? And I genuinely think like just trying a few. And I know that's easy for me to say. Like it's quite privileged that for someone to have that experience and be able to try with like different backgrounds and socioeconomic backgrounds. But I think what Nuffield are doing for summer holidays is phenomenal because you can try all the classes and you go, actually, you know what? I felt really good in that one because of the girls that were in it, because of how I felt after.
Yeah.
And I think what's phenomenal about this campaign is that the parents of the girls are also getting a free day trial pass, and for them to go, right, whilst you're doing that class, I'm going to go off and try the new spin studio, or I'm going to try rowing, or actually, you know what, I feel like today just want to get in the pool and just do a few laps.
Just out of interest, what kind of conversations are you going to have with your daughter around exercise as she's growing up? And have you thought about? I'm assuming.
I think about it a lot, and I never say. I'm so careful with the language I use about my body around her, and I have never spoken negatively about my body in front of her. But even when I was pregnant with her, I was like, she can hear everything I'm saying about my body, and she'll be feeling it. Yeah. And I've come so far with my just the relationship with my body. Like, I don't say anything to myself that I wouldn't say to my best friend, to my sister, to my mum, like to her. And especially now I have a daughter, I'm like, I just couldn't ever imagine her going through the amount of like destruction I went through.
That is so important. You say that, because how many times we think to one person, we're saying, "Oh, I feel fat," and you don't, and that person's probably a little bit bigger than you, for example, and how they then perceive that.
Also, you would never say that to someone else.
No, you wouldn't say it to somebody. No, exactly. You wouldn't
never say it to yourself.
So you're saying it to yourself. But it's really important that you don't self-destruct in that, and you're talking about your daughter and being a good role model for that. But I mean, I guess it's something you've worked on so hard, and I think
having her, like giving her the choices of like going back to that, like giving her after school clubs and like just, I don't know, like giving her the choice and going, look, do you want to try swimming? Do you want to try this? And I want to just keep that fun element until she's at a point where she can choose exactly what she wants to do. And if it's not a sport, then fine, you come for a walk with me, or like take the dog out, or do whatever. Like Matt, my husband, is extremely active and he's so aware. He also did a bikini. Not bikini. He did a fitness competition before we knew each other. We did physique competition exactly the same year, which is wild. And he's gone through a very similar experience and like hearing it from a male's side of things. Yeah. And now he's got an incredible relationship with exercise, and she sees both of us train, but not. And I'm very aware of like how seeing my parents go off, and especially like all my friends be like, you're just like the fittest family, and it's so annoying. And I was like, oh, I'm not. I don't join them. And so
but also
I'm so unfit.
But you know what? But the thing is, that's not a bad thing that you were brought up in that environment.
No, it's
and we see it as that when we're young, because it's not normal for most parents to introduce their kids so young to physical activity.
Also, just
do you know what I mean? Or they don't have that education around. But then we as kids, because it's one in however many that get the opportunity to have that. And privilege.
I was so lucky.
It's great.
Privilege.
But when it's by force,
but other kids will be, because it's not normal for them. Will see it as a bad thing. But then it makes you want to be like the average kid that isn't doing anything. Which is so wrong, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's so wrong.
What advice would you give? I guess you can do it from actual active perspective. What advice would you give other parents in regards to initiating these conversations with their children around getting into sport, around, not even sport, let me not say sport, around just getting active? So I think some of the time, especially if you're a parent that has grown up, I think the generation above us possibly, and even our generation a little bit, where there was those negative conversations, I think it's hard to all of a sudden switch that frame of mind to cool. How do I make sure my child doesn't have this? Even though I didn't have this growing up, how do I now initiate this conversation with my child, whether it be a boy or a girl, on how to get into movement and it not be this negative thing. It's this thing that you enjoy, and it's this thing that you do for your mental health and your physical health and spiritual and just all the health.
All of the health.
All of the health.
No, it's true.
Not just one of them.
I think it's difficult. I do. I think if you're a parent that's kind of got into that cycle of not taking physical activity or movement serious, then it's really hard to go back and teach your kids good habits if your habits are really, really bad. So you've got to teach yourself those good habits before you can relay them to your kids. So it's looking at yourself first. And I think that, you know, they can't educate the kids around movements if they're not prepared to kind of feel it themselves in some sort of way.
Yeah.
And I believe that. I mean, as I say, I'm not a parent. It's really
that's
hard
why I think
to judge parents because I understand how difficult parenting is. But yeah, I think it's important that, you know, themselves understand the importance of movement to then encourage their kids to do different movements. Of any. But it's also, you know what? It's so difficult to sit here and say that I was very lucky as a kid and I talk about all the activities I had on my estate that I could do. It was free. And the difficulty now growing up, when we already know the living quiet, everything else is now going, there might be options of after school club. And you might be a parent that go, just because I didn't have it, I'd love you to do X, Y, and Z. But actually financially, I can't afford for you to go to this club or that club or that club. And so they never really get the opportunities, which is important. You have to give kids opportunities so that they know what they want to do. Now, if there's 5 different classes, I don't know, throughout the week at school, but you can only afford to push them into one and they really don't enjoy doing that, they're going to come away from it.
Yeah.
So it's like the opportunities in school are very few and far between, like for kids to be motivated to do some sort of movement or enjoy movement without really feeling like they're exercising. Because I think
how do we then initiate that conversation?
The thing is, it should be a government thing. I think schools need to be more active anyway. You know, the government certainly have to do more. You know, the government have the findings, right? So they know that the national findings are we need to be doing 30 minutes of movements per day. Now, I remember a PE class in primary school, for example, say we had 1 hour a week. By the time you get changed, 20 minutes. By the time the teacher explains by the time the teacher explains what they're doing, and then by the time you then got to get changed to get to another lesson or move on into class or whatever, you probably do 20, 30 minutes maximum.
Thought about that, you know.
Maximum.
I've never thought about that.
Now, and that's once a week.
Yeah.
So I'm talking, they're not even doing that every day. If they were doing that every day, you might, okay, cool. You know, it's fine, but that's once a week or twice a week if you're in a senior school.
So
the government
needs to help initiate those conversations.
Of course, because the government is saying that we're not a healthy nation. The Healthy Nation Index is showing that. It's factually saying we are not a healthy nation. Now, we go back to schools, right? That's where kids spend most of their time they're being parented or taught by the teachers. That's where they've got to be introduced to it. They have to be, and it has to be free. Yeah. But for some people, we all have different upbringings and backgrounds and whatever. And not everybody can afford to go and do after school clubs outside of that. They have to be exposed to it in school, primary school and senior school. In my opinion, the government have to do more. It has to be a bigger part of the curriculum. Because further down the line, whatever you go and do later on in life, health and well-being is always going to be a big part of it. Yeah. It's important that we are healthy. I think that the stats back that. But they don't do enough in terms of investment into that in schools to back up their findings.
I think what Farah said about, like, for me, it's fascinating hearing about, like, just because we were in the countryside with no neighbours, like, so the estate and the culture of community, and
so like, you didn't do Tom and Jerry like I did.
I honestly didn't have anyone to do it with. Anyone? It was like half an hour to drive to the closest like shops. Like, we were in the middle of nowhere. However,
but you ran there, of course. Mum and Dad.
We ran there. Me on my mum's back.
Ran there, cycled there, and swam that way.
No, we were so active because we were so far out. But I think it's so interesting what you said now, like that community aspect, like being pushed out of the like where you grew up. We need to almost create that ourselves as parents. And like I heard someone say the other day, like on a Saturday, instead of paying for a football class at their local gym, they were like, Bring a football. The parents can just have a few drinks, just bring whatever, bring a picnic down and bring a ball, and we'll just set up like a little team. And they're like
everyone's
2 years
happy.
old and everyone's happy. So the parents are together.
Yeah.
They're always, like you could always do a parents game, you could do a kids game, like just creating that community and actually being like, right, let's think about movement. How can we get our children off their iPads, off their phones, whatever, and like let's try a few sports with them. Maybe one week, one parents could go, oh, should we bring a few?
But we used to do that all the time.
or whatever.
It's like a
We used to do
sports
that all the
days
time.
type
There we
thing.
go. Yeah, like,
But that's what I'm saying. It's changed because what I'm saying. So, for example, Battersea Park was our park that we used to go to, and that was our
Love
park.
Battersea Park.
And we'd go there, we'd be there from 9 till whatever time street lights on, you back home. But we'd take rounders, bat and ball, we'd take bikes, we'd take our rollerblades, whatever, the park's big enough to walk around, we'd take our football, we'd have a picnic, we'd all bring a bit and we'd all put it out and we'd all share.
But I think, just having that, like, right, come on, I'm going to create a WhatsApp group. It's so easy now. Just
you
to be
can
like,
create
meet
that.
here.
You can create that community for
Yeah.
yourself.
There's so many ways that we can like do things together, like park
Yeah.
run. I mean, it's 5K. Honestly, I did it
I would
with
still
Ray in a
struggle.
buggy. I couldn't even do one lap, and I had Ray in the buggy. I was like, it's the pram. I think she's crying. Shall I stop it? That would carry on.
Diversion.
Yeah. But like that, just on a Saturday morning, seeing everyone together, you start getting to know people. And like, that's the way that movement should be
100%.
enjoyed.
How do we think we make exercise more appealing for young girls that might be shy, and those girls that would have been in PE when we were younger, just literally every week they were on their period? How do we make exercise and movement more appealing to those shy young girls that are really intimidated? Because obviously,
You know what,
that's
I'll be
Move
honest,
Together's
school-
for, isn't it,
school
really?
for
But how do we
me-
get to them?
School for me was, you just don't have enough time, right? When you're starting to get to those more teenagers, because in primary school, you're not aware of your body odor and smells and whatever, right? So in primary school, it's not a thing if you get hot and sweaty.
Yeah.
You're used to your little kid coming home and sticky for mum's, you know what I mean? And you go to senior school and you start to change, and as women, you're starting to develop different things, right? You take part in a PE lesson in the morning, your first lesson, your first opening 2 lessons of the day, and you're expected to sit there and put your clean clothes back onto your sweaty bra or your sweaty underwear, and you can smell it's not attractive, it's not appealing. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I've just got my shower before I've come to school. If I'm not allowed to get a shower after I've done exercise, I don't want to participate in exercise.
Also, young girls
So
don't
you're
want to
already-
shower. We
you're
had an
even
open
boys-
shower in school.
Exactly.
I'm not
So you're
showering around
already-
other girls.
You're already putting a barrier there for young adults to participate in sport, because these things are a thing, right? If you smell and you're getting bullied for smelling, for example, you're never going to do sport again.
So true.
So there's so many barriers that stops people in schools wanting to participate in it. I mean, if I could smell and I could smell well, right? So if I could smell, I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. It's like there'll be times even I wouldn't want to do PE, hot days, because I'm like, and not because I didn't like PE, but because I'm thinking if I can't go straight home from school and wash, I can't take part. My OCD kicked in to the point that I can't take part in PE.
But the fact of the matter is,
Or if I
we're
can't
not gonna
wash,
have an option. We can't
I'd always
stop
have a towel where I
exercising.
could like wipe down with a towel, because I could never smell. The thought of smelling.
So
being
you're
sweaty
saying maybe do exercise at the end of the day, so then once we're done.
Maybe, but even that, then they go and do things after school, right? But I'm just saying there has to be an option. There has to be somewhere where they can wash after doing it, and it has to be private. Even
Not in a communal area where your body's
because obviously,
changing.
of course, exactly that. But there has to be timers on how long people can be. It's a wash down, for example. It's better than having nothing.
Squatty wash.
Do you know what I mean? It's better than not. I know that was a lot of factors in ours, especially in the summer, and people start to sweat from playing in the playground. You go into the classroom, it would stink. And then you'd have people bullying that person for the way that they
Kids
smell.
are mean.
And that's what happens. So I'm saying it's not really, I think that in school has always been a barrier, especially for girls when they start to hit 13.
So then how do we make it more appealing?
It's difficult.
Just literally just like, because Move Together, the whole point is we're not trying to get access to the children that are already really into sport and they actually enjoy sport, because I love sport. And to be fair, I'd still have those same problems. I'd be like, that quick wet wipe, whatever. But that's because I enjoy doing sport. So I'd still go and do it. But there is still those young, I'm going to say adults, because girls and boys, that don't enjoy sports. How do we communicate with them about, I need to stop saying sports, movement and
Sport
exercise?
for
How
me-
do we get them involved in things like Move Together, where they feel motivated to come and get involved?
I think the wording of movement is far better than sports, right?
Yeah.
Because when you think of sports, you think of being competitive. So when I think of a sport, I'm thinking of now I've got to compete. If I do tennis or rugby, whatever it might be, you're now competing, because that is what sport is, right? Sport is about competing. Movement isn't about competing. Movement is about you.
Yeah.
So I think even the language, changing that language and saying, it's really important that we keep moving. It's really important that we, walk instead of getting on the bus to the sweetie shop or whatever it might be. I think that encouraging people to move and use that language of movement, as opposed to, I would encourage you to take up a sport. I would encourage you to go to the gym. Yeah. That comes later down the line. Once they kind of adopt that, actually being active is moving. You can't, walk before you can crawl, or whatever the saying is. And I think sometimes they're like sport. And they're like, well, I'm not sporty. Rather than let's get on the move. I don't want to be competitive. Some people just aren't nature. They don't have that competitive nature, do they? There's just some people that aren't competitive. And that's not a bad thing. That's okay. Yeah. But then it's how we encourage those people that aren't competitive to move. And I think the language in terms of movement is a far better language to use than to use a sport, which, if I interpret that, it would be about being competitive.
So we're talking about playtime and stuff like that. And again, we're very lucky in how we grew up. We were all moving. What do you think the implications are and the long-term effects if we don't get young girls moving now?
Oh, I think it will affect every aspect of their lives, like their relationships with their friends, because you think the opposite to movement is stillness, and movement comes with a community feel, with friends, with that group activity. And so the opposite to that, what's a fancy word for opposite? Not Anith.
Opposite is great. That's my language. I like that. That's all right.
Opposite.
Opposite, yeah.
Synonym. I'm going to Google it after. No, the opposite is loneliness, and we know that loneliness is the biggest impact. Loneliness, not moving, sedentary to stillness. Let's say stillness. That lifestyle, sedentary. Thank you. Is literally that's the driver for early death, basically. And it's so,
not to take it there, but we have to. There's a seriousness to this,
and we have to move. We have to keep not just our organs healthy and our heart healthy, but we all know the mental impact it has on our brains. It will then lead to I think not doing as well in school, in not having that confidence. Whenever I exercise, that obviously that immediate high, after a game, if you've won or whatever. I can't speak for you, Farah,
but said if you won.
If you've won, not if you've won. But that confidence, that it will impact everything. So I honestly think if you as a parent are thinking, how can I word this for my children right now? Go to them, think of future you, think of 80-year-old you. That's genuinely where I go to, 80-year-old me, that I want to still be traveling the world, being able to lift my own suitcase without being would you be able to help me down the stairs? I want to be independent. I want to have the energy to run around with hopefully my grandchildren. I want to be able to have dogs and take them for walks. Think of it as life. How do you want your life to be impacted? You want it to be enriched by exercise, and you ultimately, I want to live and see my grandchildren get older.
Because you don't want to train for your summer body, you want to train for your old lady body.
But we start to write you off by age, don't we?
Yeah.
We start to get written off by age. Well, you're 60 now, you're an OAP, and I should be getting up to give you my seat. I don't want to be that 60-year-old that
don't give me a seat.
Yeah.
Do you
know what I mean? It's how we are the ones that can shape our future, and it starts very young, and it's encouraged by, as I say, mainly teachers, parents. But when you read all the research that's gone in, it's important that we take note of that. And doctors will always say, the more active you are, the less I'll see of you. And it's so true. I don't go to the doctors. I did in lockdown, but that was probably the first time in 37 years. But they didn't have my name down. I didn't even have a doctor surgery because I didn't need to go to doctors. There was never really, rarely got a little bug or a flu or a cold. Rarely got it because you keep, and probably goes down to the fact that you're keeping yourself active. The only time I probably got ill was when I stopped playing.
Yeah.
You get a couple of weeks off and all of a sudden your body's going, what's happening? It's shutting down because it's not used to it. So you've got to keep yourself active in order to keep yourself away from the NHS and the doctors. Some of us have got private healthcare. I bet.
I don't. Use the NHS.
I thought your mum might have encouraged that. In that country, there's probably only one hospital now.
Literally. I mean, we're all just born there. I also just want to say quickly, Hannah, I feel like we've spoken a lot about like community and friendships and like that obviously loneliness. And I think if you are a parent of an 11 to 16-year-old, pairing them up with like a buddy, like a movement buddy, and like saying to their mum, like, idea. Oh, let's get the girls together and they can go off for like a walk and we can just hang behind and walk with them. Or like, let's sign you both
that's
up.
Important that you, sorry to interrupt, but that's so important because how many parents now, I used to go to school with my brother and my sister and we'd get the bus, train, walk, whatever it was. Parents don't trust their kids to maybe walk 10 minutes down the road by themselves. Right? Kids get into that cool phase, right? Well, I'm too cool to be walking my parent. But you're right.
Like hang back.
Hang with your mate, go with your mate, and I'll be 5 minutes behind you and I can see you in the distance, but I'm not with you. So I think that's really important, as you mentioned there, like you buddy up with somebody that's local and it might even just start by walking to school as a buddy. Because you know they're going to school, I can kind of follow them, whether it be in the car slowly or whatever. As a parent, I think it's really important that
I think it's
you can buddying up is so much. And giving them that ownership to do it themselves.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. I think that's such a cool thing. Just something you can fix for that age group really, really early. I think.
Pair them up.
Yeah.
Have the conversations.
Or like a group where they meet
and
together.
Use the right language. I think, to be fair, I think that we've covered so much today and I'm very thankful, ladies, that you came and joined me.
Yeah, you'd be on your own.
This would be a really awkward conversation otherwise. So hopefully people get to listen to this and there's loads of take homes and I think you've thankfully come up with loads of actual things that people can action. They can take away from this and go, cool, this is what we want to do. And we can start to get young women into movement in whichever way suits them. So I thank you very much.
Thank you. What a great conversation.